Biophilia, though, is while maybe an inherent tendency, it appears to be a very weak biological tendency. Like so much of what it means to be humans, it needs to be cultivated, it needs to be developed. It depends on experience that's recurrent. It requires learning and socialization in a place that's familiar and meaningful, and with people around who say, this is important, and we want you to do it, and then we're going to facilitate the opportunity, and it's part of who we are as a culture. And if you don't have all those things, it's very hard for this weak biological tendency to become robust. Edward Wilson put it this way, it's the centrality of experience that, our brain is prone to weave our mind from the evidences of life, not merely minimal contact. And we can grow up, if we're cut off, with the outward appearance of normality, largely stripped of these natural features, but something vitally important would be missing. And our brain, which is peculiarly equipped to receive this information, would be impoverished and diminished in some fundamental way. So I was saying there are three types of ways we experience nature. We experience it directly, there's self-sustaining nature, plants, animals, ecosystems, landscapes. There's indirect, there's a lot of natural things that may be alive, like that potted plant back there. But they're, without watering it, it ain't going to be alive. And so we also experience living things and our, whether it be in gardens or aquariums or potted plants in our house or our convention meeting rooms, and representationally, symbolically, metaphorically, through storytelling and art and visual depiction. They're all important. They're all important. And the representation is very subtle, but it's very important, especially as we become more indoor. But as important as all those are, if you don't have the direct experience with self-sustaining nature, you really miss out on an awful lot that fosters learning and adaptation and problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity, and all the things I've been talking about, because those indoor plants and that television set just doesn't have these kinds of characteristics: variability, intensity, instability, ambience. They may have it to some extent, but very little. They don't provide those very subtle, challenging basis for learning, and they don't provide, fear and coping, which is a very important part of it as well. So take the frog here. You can see the frog in a picture. You can see its color, maybe, but not much else. Or you can have a specimen, maybe in school, and so you can see the color, size, and shape. But if you look at all these other things, weight, feel, smell, movement, danger, interrelationships, and much more, you need the live animal in the outdoor context for really making that creature meaningful. The problem, to go back to where I started, is that there appears to be a sea change occurring in our society. We've experimented on ourselves on a massive scale in the space of a generation. These are strong statements. Bob Pyle is a lepidopterist, good conservation biologist, but a great writer. He's overstating, but it's a way of getting your attention. He called it the extinction of experience. And he suggests that one of the greatest causes of our ecological crisis, and I would call it our human crisis, is this increasing state of personal alienation in which many of us live. The extinction of experience, he says, sucks the life from the land, the intimacy from the connections. And these are strong overstatements. As cities and metastasizing suburbs forsake their natural diversity, their citizens grow removed from personal contact, awareness, and appreciation retreat. Too strong a statement, but it gets your attention, and it does. There is an important germ of truth in there. Richard Louv called it nature deficit disorder, that within the space of a generation, children's ways of understanding the natural world have just profoundly changed from abstraction to personal reality. I think you all know this, and I don't really have to say more about it. Again, it's not just experience, it's experience in a context. That context is diminishing as well. Edward Ralph called it placelessness. And if places are indeed a fundamental aspect of our existence, a part of our identity, he asked, then it's important that we kind of make sure that we maintain these places. But instead, he suggests that there are signs that they're disappearing, placelessness, the weakening of distinct and diverse experiences, and the places that we identify with is now becoming a dominant force. And he suggests that's a trend that marks a major shift in our whole geographical basis of our existence, from a deep association to the places where we are to kind of what he calls rootlessness. And I would suggest that a lot of this is about the built environment, and that's our natural habitat today. You know, most of us live in an urban built environment. That's where 70, 80% of Americans live, barring catastrophe. That's where they're going to continue to live. But the way in which we've gone about designing and developing that built environment has been massively traumatic to the natural systems that are part of those urban built environments and our sense of connection to them. Degraded and depleted natural systems, you know, some of the things the governor talked about, consumption of energy and space and materials, you know, leveling of landscapes, widespread loss of biodiversity, a lot of pollutants, but also this other often unappreciated part of separation and alienation from nature. When you look at most of our modern buildings, such as the one we're in, they minimize contact with daylight, natural materials, shapes, colors, views, ventilation, vegetation, you know, that isolate us from nature. And the irony is that when you look at ourselves sometimes in these places, they're like the barren cages of the old style zoo, which we now have outlawed as inhumane. It's humane to put ourselves there, but it's inhumane to put a bear or a wolf there. But David Orr, again, it's a little bit strong, but he said most modern buildings and landscapes reflect no understanding of ecology or ecological process. They tell us that where we are is unimportant. They tell us that our energy is cheap and abundant, can be squandered, that can be provisioned with materials and water and disposed of wastes that are not, you know, that remind people architecture is pedagogy, that they're not part of the larger web of life, and that basically they resonate with very little to no part of our ecology as a species, our evolutionary experience, our aesthetics in the deep sense of our aesthetics as they derive from nature.